I wasn't the rat when I was 13, 14. Sure, I had a lot of anger in me, but now the anger is
the video is live now on YouTube.
Okay.
My friends, we're starting. Chaim Tovim L'Shalom.
In every way, shape, or form.
I mean, you see, I have a wrist on my thing. Baruch Hashem, had a baby boy yesterday in the morning. I've been Zachar. Baruch Hashem, Mazel Tov. Okay. We're coming from the 15th of Shvat, Chamish Asur B'Shvat, and one of the things the Rebbe emphasized on this day many times, the Rebbe says to use out this day to strengthen the avoider that every Yid has in himself, Shivas Hamidim. Eretz, Chito, Se'oira, Gefen, Te'ena, V'rimen, Eretz, Zeshem, and Dvash is in every person. And the Rebbe says, Adrab, because it's in a Yid, that's why it manifests itself in Eretz Yisrael. But first it's in the Yid. It says, Kitiyu atem Eretz Chayetz. We're the Eretz. We are the Eretz. And we need to do the avodah of Eretz, Chita, Se'ira, Gefen, Te'ena, V'rim, and Eretz Yisrael, and Dvash. In our avodah Hashem. And the Rebbe, first of all, explains what is Eretz. The first Eretz, the Parasik says twice Eretz and Eretz. The first Eretz the Rebbe explains is before anything grows, you need to plow the land. You need to plow. You're just going to put the seed on the ground, nothing's going to grow. You have to plow. That's the idea of, the Rebbe says, the idea of Leiv Nishbar V'nitke. That's a brach in the hearts. Baruchrius, not the Bagashim. Bagashim is a Yid needs to have a healthy heart to be strong. And even with the Leiv Nishbar V'nitke, he needs to be B'simcha V'tuv Levav. He needs to be B'simcha. But at the same time, it's this idea of bittul. A certain idea of bittul. That's Eretz. That's the first Eretz. That's the plow. If you want it to grow, you need to plow. You need to plow the field, the shtickle. And like we see by Hilchas Shabbos, the Rebbe says that it says there are lamites malachis, 39 malachis, a chodesh, a zereya, a koitzer, a ma'amed, a dosh. It goes through. The Gemara says sidura the pas nokat. Right? The Mishnah is why the order of the malachis is sidura the pas, the order of making bread. Which means this whole, the Rebbe says, the idea of Eretz is the general idea before, what are you growing? But it's this idea of going down into the world. There's the neshama, the way the neshama is lemailo before it comes down. And the neshama has this descent that comes down into this world. It's yirida for the neshama. It's going down. And that's the whole idea of Siddur the past. Why does it say, Arboim choser achas? Why couldn't it just say lamates malachas? There's 39 malachas. Why does it say there's 40 minus 1 malachas? What's 40 minus 1? Just say 39. The answer is you're trying to emphasize that something is missing over here. Choser. There's a chesorim. But the chesarehu ma'atem elikim. It says Moshe Rabbeinu had 49 shari. He didn't get the sharanun. That's emphasizing on the yerida of the neshama down here in this world. You're emphasizing that there's a shtickle yerida over here. That's Eretz number one. The neshama is coming down, but the neshama is missing. Ani amarti elikim atem. We are elikim, and we, when the neshama comes down here, there's a vatachasrei ma'atem elikim. We're missing a little bit from the way we are. The neshama is coming down into this world, but it's l'tzoyrech aliyah. You're gonna grow all the produce, all the yom that we say over here through this charish and the Eretz. And that's going to make the neshama not have a tachasarei u'ma'atem elikim. We're not going to have any chesaron in elikim, shem elikim, and we're even going to have shem avaya, and even higher than shem avaya. So that's Eretz number one. Eretz symbolizes on the yerida in Eretz. The neshama is coming down into Eretz. That's Eretz. Then the pasuk continues and says, Chita u'sa'ira v'gafen u'te'eina v'rimen Eretz zeis shem v'dvash. So there's chita. What's chita? Wheat. Wheat is ma'achal adam. That's food that a person eats. The Rabbi says that symbolizes on the adam that's in every person. The nefesh elikis, the person that's in him. Adam al shem adam el adam is from the term similar adam to what? To the adam el inshallah kitzi to the Eibishter. That's the nefesh elikis. That's the godly part that's in a Jew. mitzad. So that's the avodah mitzad chita ma'achal adam. Then comes sa'oida, which is barley, which is behema. Like it says, by a saita, she has a sa'oidim carbon. Why? It says lefisha ma'isa behema, l'chen ma'achal behema. She acts like an animal source, or carbon is going to be from animal food soida. That it's interesting. The Rebbe doesn't bring this. The Rebbe brings a different Gemara. Someone asked his friend. The Gemara says he asked chitim nasu yafis. How did the chitim grow this year? He told him soidim nasu yafis. The barley was done good. He said, "What are you telling me? Go tell that to the horses and donkeys about the soidim," which means donkeys and horses are behemoths, and that's soidim. That's the avodah mitzad, the nefesh habahamis. The yid avodah, it's with his nefesh habahamis. That is chita soida. Then it comes geffen. It says geffen tidosh. The pasuk says tidosh mesameach elikim ve'anoshim. Tidosh makes elikim and anoshim happy. Elikim is the nefesh elikis. It adds simcha on the avodah. Mesameach elikim is the nefesh elikis, and also Anoshim is the Nefesh Abahamis, like he brings a pasuk that says, Enosh who, which is referring that he's weak, which this is referring to the Nefesh Abahamis, so the avodah that he does with his Nefesh Elikis. And with his Nefesh Abahamis, he does it with Simcha, that's Geffen. After that comes Te'ena. Te'ena, it says that Adam, after Adam did the Chait, after Chait ate Sadas, Vayisberu Ali Te'ena, Vayasu Lohem Kosnos. That's what Chagoris it says. They took the leaves of the Ta'ina tree and they made for themselves clothes. From the Ta'inim, they made themselves clothes. The Rebbe says that symbolizes Ad Avodah Mitzad, the Levushim. That's what Chagoris. They took the Ta'inim and they made themselves clothes. And then, which this is a person's Avodah Mitzad is Levushim. Mitzad is Machshava, Dibur, Maiseh. There's the garments of the soul. A person has his thoughts, his speech, and his action. That a person could change. Thoughts change every second. Talking, you don't have to say what you're saying. You can say something else. What you do, you can. But in Maisa are levushim anefesh, which someone could change. That's symbolizing on the ta'ina of a yismaru ale ta'ina. So that's a person's avodah mitzad is levushim, and he brings that in the Sefer Torah of Rabbi Meir, it says they made for themselves kosnois oid. They made kosnois oid. In the Sefer Torah that we have, it says oid with the ayin. It says they made themselves and the Chumash that we have, it says kosnos oid with the ayin, which means like leather clothes. But in the Sefer Torah that I made out, it says kosnos oid with an aleph, which means light. He made his levushim, his machshava dibra ma'aseh, uvkolachtin, was lit up. His thought, speech, and action was lit up, was holy.
Maybe a different letter.
That's what it says. Yeah, it has an aleph in the Sefer Torah. This says in Breishis Rabbah, and the Rebbe says Aleph is Alufa Shaloilam, the Vav is a line, which means it symbolizes Aram Shacha, and the Reish symbolizes on this world. The lowest level, you brings the light of the Eibishter into the world. So that is the person lights up his levushim, his garments of his soul, Machshava Dibra Ma'aseh. And then comes what? Rimoin. Rimoin is a pomegranate. It says Malay mitzvahs. Kerimin to be filled up with mitzvahs like a pomegranate, which a pomegranate, we see each piece is separated from the other one. It's separated, which this symbolizes on the idea of mitzvahs, that when someone does a mitzvah, it says, Ein oisem mitzvahs chavilis. You can't pack up 10 mitzvahs in one shot. You need to do each mitzvah on its own, right? There's many examples the Gemara brings on this idea, but mitzvahs need to be done full focus, each one on its own, separated from the other one. But who's separating it? Not something from the outside. There's not something external outside the pomegranate that's separating one seed from the other. It's the pomegranate itself. It's the meat, The basar of the pomegranate itself is separating one seed from the other, which means the Torah itself, the mitzvah itself, is separating one mitzvah from the other mitzvah. This afroda between one mitzvah and another. It's not something outside from the world, chas v'shalom, or outside of the Kedusha. The Torah itself is separating one thing from another. So according to this, says the Rebbe, that the order of the pasuk of Eretz, Chita, Seder, Gavin, Teinu, V'Rimein is Mamayla Lamata, which means Eretz, first of all, symbolizes under the Neshama coming down to Eretz, coming down to this world, to work hard. Eretz. Then Chita is the Avodah Mitzad Nevesh Elikis, Ma'achal Adam. So Oira is Ma'achal Beimis, he's even working with the animals, so the Nevesh Abahamas. And that's done with the Simcha. Then comes Te'ena is the Levushim. It's not is even going on the garments and something more external from him than the person himself. His machshava dibur ma'aseh, his thought, speech, and action. Then comes Rimain is the world, the things of the world that he's using out to do a mitzvah. So you're going from Chita, Sa'oira, Kefen, to Eina, V'Rimain. You're going all the way down. Now the pasuk says again Eretz. Second Eretz. Why is there a second Eretz? If you already said Eretz, so the Rebbe explained that Eretz symbolizes on Charisha, on plowing. The hard work that you do in order for something to grow. Which this is the hard work of the Neshama coming down to this world. This Yerida, but it's the Torah Aliyah. Why is there a second Eretz? This symbolizes, and after the Neshama comes down to this world, which that in itself is a Yerida, there's a second Yerida. What's that? The Yerida in Golus. The Yerida in Golus is a much harder work. There's a much bigger heaven behester, a much bigger concealment on the Eibishter. The Neshama coming down to this world, even in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, was still a Yerida for the Neshama. You're still coming to Elam Hazeh Gashmi. You still have a Nefesh Bahamis. You still have the world, which is not Kodesh in the Neshama above. It's only the Eibishter. It's only Elokus. The second Eretz symbolizes on the Yerida in Golus, and the Rebbe says, just like we said before, the first Eretz is to plow the field, and in order for the produce to grow. What's the second Eretz? That is to dig in order to find the treasure. When you're digging to find the treasure, it's not the same. Oh, you're a digger. Here we have the digger right here himself. To dig, when you dig to plow a field, what do? You have the machine just go jump, 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 jump. That's it. Come on, you made a line here, a line there. You worked hard with grobin, but that's still a limited digging. The second level is you're digging to find the treasure, go digging to find gold, to find silver, to find coals, to find whatever. Avodim tevis about gold, you said are underground. You're not just digging 1 foot. You said you see over here in Florida, you want to dig to find water. You dig 10 feet. You have water. In New York, you dig 100 feet to find water. To dig to find a diamond,
it's a mine. You need a mine.
You got to dig. You got to dig.
Dig a mine is to move mountains.
Right. That's the second Eretz that it says. That's the Yerida in Golus. But inside Agra, you're gonna dig harder. You're gonna find more. Guys, just gonna dig to plow a field. Okay, you're gonna grow wheat, barley. How much is that worth? You're gonna grow chita, straight grapes with a taino v'rimen. Very nice. $10. How much someone's gonna rip you off? You're gonna go to a store over here. Yeah, they rip you off. But that's whatever. You're gonna dig. You'll find stuff that are worth millions of dollars, gold and silver and whatever. You'll find a gold mine. But if you work harder, you'll find more and you'll get more. And that's the Yerida in Golus, that the void is much harder. And he says that's what it says. Eretz Zayis. It says when Noach sent the bird out, it looked around and wanted to come back with the Ale Zayis. It came with olives, came with a branch of olives. And it says that this bird told Noach, Yehi yiyum zenois merurim b'dei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what's the size? Bitterness. That's the avodah in Golus. The avodah in Golus is a bitter avodah. The Rebbe says that's the name of Miriam. Miriam was born. Why is her name Miriam? Al Shema Mirur. She was born right when the Koshia Shibud started. Right when the hard labor in Golus Mitzrayim started. That's when she was born, and that's why she got this name, Miriam Al Shema Mirur. But this Miriam, what is she doing? It says she was standing al Svasayoid. Oymed al Svasayoid. She was standing on the side of the Nile. She was standing next to the Yoid. Even when Moshe Rabbeinu was put into the ocean, into the water, she was standing there to save Moshe Rabbeinu. She was saving Moshe Rabbeinu, and even when Bas Parei took Moshe Rabbeinu, she was there to save him. This mirror, which what I think that Rebbe is saying, that Rebbe is not mamish elaborating, but I think it's this knowledge that a Yid knows he's in Golus. A guy could say, listen, I want to have a good life, I want to feel good, so let me live life, etc., etc. And he wants to forget that he's in jail. You can have a guy that's in jail, he's in a pit, he's suffering. So either he could just say, listen, there's a famous story. There was a guy, came inside a basement, and it was very, very dark. And he couldn't see anything. He came in and he said, I can't see anything. So there's someone over there, he says, don't worry. Hang around over here enough, you'll get used to the darkness. You'll get used to the darkness. You'll be able to see what's saying out. Get used to the darkness. Right away, he ran out of the basement. He said, where are you going? He said, I don't want to get used to the darkness. That's why I want to get out of here. This mirror, it's a shtickle bitter, but it's Yedias HaMachlo is Chatzi Trufa. If someone knows, a guy can be, listen, I don't want to be depressed that I'm sick. So he's going to forget that he's sick, and he's going to forget to go to the doctor, or the guy could go to the doctor and know that he's sick. It's a shtickle depressing or whatever, but he's going to take care of himself. He's going to go heal himself and get out of this sickness. So who's smarter? Who's in the end of the day? And the Rebbe says, Miriam al Shema Miriam, this is avoid and golus metech merirus, is this itself that you know that you're in golus. You know, it's a gavaldik letter that Rebbe to Rabbi Zevin. He was a huge goin, Lubavitcher. The Rebbe wrote him once a whole letter telling him how those that say, the Zionists that say the Gula started, it's actually the sharpest letter of the Rebbe I think I ever saw in my life. Crazy letter. It's like if you read a letter and you don't know who wrote it, no one would ever guess that Rebbe wrote it because it's such a sharp letter. The Rebbe says that it's a sakona, it's a danger to say that the Gula started already. The Zionists that say you're not going to Israel and that's a schal to the Gula, the Rebbe said it's a sakona. It's a sakona. Why? The Rebbe says it's a to Mashiach Sheker. You would think a Satan that wrote this. Someone would say this is a Satan. When I went to any Satan Meruv I went to, and it was on live to Satan Meruv, I showed him this letter. And then you should see. And I showed, Yisrael David Harfinis from Yisrael Vazmanim, the famous Satan Meruv. He made many Svarim, Nishmas Shabbos. I showed him the letter, and he was the Aaron's son, Mendel. Yeah. I showed it to him. All these Satmar guys were like going out of their mind to see that the Rebbe would say such words. But the Rebbe said this is Mashiach Sheker. It's a Mashiach Sheker. It's not the Mashiach was the Torah sagt. The Torah sagt, wie Mashiach. The Torah says how Mashiach is going to come. It needs to be done through the person, Malach HaMashiach. And he needs to build the Beis HaMikdash. And he needs to bring everyone to Eretz Yisrael. And it's happened on its own without a Mashiach. And in order for Yidden to go to Israel, you need a Beis HaMikdash built first. The Rambam says it clearly twice. The beginning of Perek Aleph and again in Halacha Dalet. I don't know the Rambam by heart, but this I know by heart. I learned this. The Rebbe would emphasize this again and again and again, that it needs to be in order. And if someone says otherwise, and says that's Mashiach, that's a fake Mashiach, it's called a Mashiach Sheker. And the Rebbe said in Jewish history, whenever a Mashiach Sheker stood up, it brought Korbanis. And the Rebbe writes, I actually have the letter over here in front of me. A crazy letter. The Rebbe writes, this is the only beer I found that Rebbe said for all the crazy korbanos that are happening in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe says, you have Yidden that were saved from the Holocaust. Okay? Yidden were saved from the Holocaust, but Nisei Nisim, miraculously, they come to Eretz Yisrael, and in Eretz Yisrael, they get killed in some crazy way. The Holocaust, it was like a miracle to be saved from that. And people, the Rebbe said, were saved by Nisim Gluyim. Okay? They ended up getting killed in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe says, how is that possible? The Rebbe answered is because it's a Mashiach Sheker. The Eibishter wants to show you this Nishken Geula. Nishken is Chalta de Geula. And the Eibishter makes Kabbonis. And the Rebbe, right? The Rebbe never never is looking for his baiting for karbonis. If I stay in the first year we go over here, we don't understand the Holocaust. This we got here. Mitamol, the Rebbe is giving, and the Rebbe says, "This is that." The Rebbe writes, "This is why there's karbonis in Eretz Yisrael." And the Rebbe says that's why. The Rebbe ends off the letter and saying, "This is why people are coming to the Eretz, la 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 la. They're getting all happy." And the Rebbe Lubavitcher is coming and saying, "No, the Gula didn't start. We're in Gullus. We're in the dark Gullus. We're in the bitter Gullus." Why is he doing that? Why are you so what's the word? So negative. Yidden are happy. The Rebbe is very freilicher auf den Herzen. The Rebbe says, Yidden are getting. The Rebbe says, "L'choyre was art mir as Yidden reden sich ein as the Gula hat sich schon angegeben." What is it my business? What do I care so much? The Yidden are convincing themselves that the Gula starts. It's very doch freilicher auf den Herzen. Yidden are just getting happier on their heart. They think the Gula started, even if they're making a mistake. But Yidden are getting happy. Indian Simchas Bnei Yisrael Mavorahu. Yidden to be happy is a gewaltige thing. The Rambam writes, it's a very, very important and special thing for a Yid to be happy. So if you have Yidden that are happy, the Rebbe says, especially Al Pichsidis, it's a gewaldige thing to be happy. That is on Ruach HaKodesh through Simcha. All what he wrote is because of his Simcha. So what's the Rebbe doing? He's taking away Simcha from Yidden by saying you should know that there's no Eschal in the Gula. What do I care? What is this? Why am I sticking it in? You know how much the Rebbe told people to go around and announce that there's no Yitzchal to the Gula, and you can see so many sichas over here. There's handwritings. You can have a random sicha the Rebbe. The Rebbe added in with his pencil the whole thing. We're in Govos now, and we don't have this Chal to the Gula because this Chal to the Gula is dafke through Malach HaMashiach and dafke after Binyan Beis Hamikdash. The Rebbe would just stick it in. Wherever he could, he would stick it in. Again and again and again and again. Hundred and thousand. He used to say it almost maybe from brain and just like stick it in. Write letters and stick it in. Why is it so? The Rebbe says, why? Because the Rebbe says, canal, that this is bringing karbonis. The Rebbe says it's dangerous. You either are getting killed. Hashem, you can done, the Rebbe writes. So what am I going to do? Sit down and be quiet? The Rebbe is closing their mouth because it's dangerous to say such a thing. Which means this is Miriam al Shem al Mirir. The Rebbe is taking away the Simcha. He's Lachoyre sticking in the Mirirus over here. But this Mirirus saves the Yidden. Miriam, this Mirir saved Moshe Rabbeinu. She saved Moshe Rabbeinu from being taken away by Bas Pari and who knows what. He arranged that his mother should milk him to Ledeya, Maya Osula. And the Rebbe says, what's Ledeya? Through this Yerida and Golus, and you know there's a shtickle Mirirus, but this will bring the Gula, and then there's going to be Ledeya. We're going to have Das and Elakus. What's going to happen when Mashiach comes? We're going to have Das, and the Rebbe says, Ma is going on Bittul, which is Lamalam and Adas, and even higher than that is that this Das and this Bittul is in a way of Loy, which is Loy is 6 times 6. There's the 6 midos, and the shleimus of the 6 midos is when each one has in it all 6 midos. Mishnah is Shishasidir Mishnah, okay. So you have the Ma penetrates the Loy. Ledeya Ma also Loy. Okay, now so that's the Zayis. The Zayis is the Avodah and Golus, which is a Bir Avodah, but what do you get out of it? It's Zayis Shemin. Through the Zayis, we reach to the Shemin, which was Shemin. Shemin, Zohar says, this is going on the Rosin. This is going on the deepest secrets of the Torah, the olive. You don't see the oil is hidden in the olive. And when you crush the olive, the oil comes out. Through the Avodah and Golus of being crushed. Kosis Lamar, a Yid. This that a Yid knows that Golus, which is a shtickle, crushes him, but through this he brings the Geula, which reveals the oil, reveals the Shemin, which is symbolizing on Teros Shal Mashiach, Pnimiyas HaTorah, Chassidus, and especially Teros Shal Mashiach and the Geula is Shemin Shemin Torah, the oil of Torah, which gets revealed through the olive, through the avodah in Godless, which is a bitter avodah shtickle. Obviously, the Rebbe says over here, even when he says it, he says obviously the avodah that was on with the simcha v'tuv leivov. But the only thing I'm saying is shkoyach. The only thing I'm saying is that even though it's a bitter avodah, but it's in Ba'amis, it's a freilich avodah. When someone knows where he's holding, even though it's a shtickle bitter, but at the end of the day, this brings the gola. So bring the golden so it's Ba'amis freilich. And after that, he says, then we reached even a higher level, that's dvash. Which dvash over here is dvash tamarim, which tamarim grow. It says it takes 70 years for a tamar tree to grow. Fig tree, it takes dates. I'm sorry, dates. It takes 70 years for a date tree to grow, but dvash is the tastiest of all of them. Dvash is eretz zovas cholav dvash. Dvash is dvash. Why is it in the end of the pasuk? Because it's the Hechsta Madrega, he says. This is the peak of the peak, which this is Mashiach, this is the Geula. Through this Avodah and Godus, through the 70 years of hard work, through digging tif, what do you get? You're working hard for 70 years, we get in the end of the day, we get the Dvash. We get, like it says in Shir HaShirim, Dvash v'cholav tachas l'shoynech. And Rashi says, what's this dvash? He says, this is soidis HaTorah, pribius HaTorah. That's going to be revealed also very soon through Mashiach. So this is one of the things that Rebbe says to advertise this Bishvat to use out today to learn out the horamabm Hashem from all the Shivas Haminim. Now, Mashkech Pradas this year, Shivas Bishvat, is also the siyum horamabm, which the siyum horamabm came out. It's there's for sure a connection. So one of the things I was thinking is,
never happened before. Never happened before.
I know. Closest I know is Yud Shvat. Tavshin Mem Zayin. The siyum horamabm was on Yud Shvat.
Oh, wow.
Okay, now there's another sikha that Rebbe. Okay, so first of all, we're going to make there's a clear connection between Chamishaseh B'Shvat that the Rebbe himself made to us. What never happened before? So the actual siyum never came out on Chamishaseh B'Shvat. But in Tavshin Mem Tes, they made a celebration of the siyum horamabm Oilami and Chamishaseh B'Shvat, Tavshin Mem Tes. So Baruch Shekivanti, I thought myself of a certain connection between these two areas, of Chamishaseh B'Shvat and the siyum horamabm, and then someone showed me a sikha where the Rebbe says the same thing. I mean, the Rebbe said it. The Rebbe made the connection. Baruch Hashem, I was zoiche to be machavet to the Rebbe's, to what the Rebbe said. Now we see B'Shvat has it in two areas. On one hand, it's the 15th day of the month, which symbolizes on Shleimus, a full moon. Kaima Sira Vashlamus, it says the moon has a full blast, full light on the 15th day of the month. It symbolizes on Shleimus, but it's also what? Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a beginning, a new start, when the beginning is symbolizes on Bittul. You're just starting off. So the connection I thought was, on one hand, it's a Shleimus of the whole Rambam, is beside the ganze Rambam, Shleimus. On Eichet, Rosh Hashanah, you're starting a new cycle. On him, and I on him. But the Rebbe made a said this vent, but he explained, he said like this, every Chamish Asar, or the Hakdim, in order to understand what the Rebbe says. There's two places in the Rambam where the Rambam brings the Pasuk, Mal Haaretz Deis Hashem, Kamayim Le'Machasim. In Ilchus Tshuva, Perik Tes, and the last halacha, the whole Rambam, but we're in Hilchos Mashiach. But what's the difference? In Hilchos Tshuva, the Rambam says, Mal haaretz deis Hashem, and he stops. Zoktish kamayim liyom achasim. In the end of the Rambam says, Mal haaretz deis Hashem, kamayim liyom achasim. He brings oichet kamayim liyom achasim. What's the difference between Mal haaretz deis Hashem and kamayim liyom achasim? The Rambam says, Mal haaretz deis Hashem symbolizes on shleimus, on completion. The world is full. Mal haaretz deis Hashem. But it's not bittul. It's nishkin bittul. Malad Zeis Hashem means I exist. I exist. And my whole Metzius gets filled up with knowing the Eibishter. Malad Zeis Hashem. Now, when someone the Rambam writes in Hilchos Mikvois, what's the idea of toiveling? He says when someone goes inside the mikveh, you don't see the person. The person puts himself in the water, and the person's totally covered over and surrounded with the water. He's not sitting over there looking at the water, and he's in the Wasser, Rosa Wasser, but he's covered over with the water. Yeah, he's kuloi. It says in Chassidus, Tibul is the same letters as Habitul. Tevila is Oisius Habitul. What's the whole idea of Tevila Bitul? Nullification. The Rambam says someone goes inside of the mikveh. What's the idea of a mikveh? The Rambam in Halacha Sefer, he says it's this idea of Bitul, that a person puts himself into the water, and he says, I'm putting myself into the Mei Hadas HaToid. I'm putting myself into holy waters, which is symbolizing on Torah. And he says, Mei Hadas, the knowledge of the Eibishter, Das, which is Torah, and his whole mitzvah is getting covered over. Now, when someone doesn't understand something, when something is hacha for them, he says it's hacha, it's higher, it's abstract, it's above me. I asked Rabbi Victor right after I spoke about the siyum horamabm, I said, was I speaking Chinese? Like, did people understand what I was saying? Or people understood it? So he said, I understood it, but I'm sure for some people or many people, I don't remember exactly what he said. He said it was over their head. It's above their head. What does it mean above their head? What's this term above the head? Maybe it's Ashkocha Pratis. Come on, above the head. Reminds me now, Shtickle Fabrengen, there's a Lubavitcher Rosh Yeshiva. It was actually a Groiser corner by Kiva Wagner, all of Shalom. He was a Torontonian, hardcore Litvish, but he became a Lubavitcher, whatever. He was a huge Kohen, even when he was a little kid. I heard from the Rosh Yeshiva of Neri Yisrael over there. He told me he remembers him as a kid. He wouldn't go to recess. He would sit and learn Gemara all day. As a little kid, he said, sit and steig, and he became a Lubavitcher Chassid. The kid says, so they brought him to Yeshiva's kites with a whole bunch of 15-year-olds. Yeah, a whole bunch of 15-year-old kids. And they came to give a shir. So he came and he gave a shir. And he smoked a ganze pupil, whatever. And no one understood a word. So the guy that made this Yeshiva's kites is Reb Gershon Avson Schlitter. He told him and he said, he was able to speak on their level. What are you, Dafka, speaking, Verte, these guys don't understand what you're saying. So he said, I was giving them a certain, he said, I did it on purpose, but Dafka, why? He said, these 15-year-old think they know everything. He says, I didn't show you the Groise Verstehers, they don't need they understand everything, they can learn, they know how to learn Gemara, they know how to learn Chassidus, they know everything, they're in the Yeshiva's kites. It's a certain, people that want to learn Yeshiva in the summer, they're not going to some camp. So these guys think, says, I didn't show you, I didn't show you, I They're definitely hard of it to verstehen. I could just sit down and we already reached our shleimus. We're showing geendigt. We reached our this. So he said, I came to give you a command, which means he came to show them. So then I show them as you didn't reach to the top of the mountain. You have where to climb. And that's Hilchis Tshuva, it's Mal Ha'aretz Deis Hashem. Der Mensch ist am Metzies, und seine Metzies wird angefüllt. Das ist Hilchis Tshuva. That's the highest Madrege the Rambam writes about the Mashiach in Hilchis Tshuva. That the world will exist, and the world will be filled up with knowledge. We will know Hashem. No bittul. Over here, the Rambam says, Kaman Le'yom HaChasim. Bittul. Even in Yomei Mashiach, and the Rambam says right before, we're going to know the deep secrets. We're going to grasp the Eibishter. So he says, we're going to know, which is a huge chiddush. The Rambam says in Hilchos Yesod, he says, a nivre kenish verstehen the boide. Here he says, But verstehen the Eibishter. For Yodim Dvarim Asas Sumim, we'll know all the Dvarim Asas Sumim. So you could think that's it. Yemaisa Mashiach, there's no bittul, there's no more toiveling in the mikveh, which means something above you, over your head, something that you don't understand. The Eibishter is hechefendir. That the Rambam doesn't say in Hilchos Shul. Here in the end of the Rambam says, Kamam L'yom HaChasim. There's this bittul. As much as deep and secrets we're going to know from the Eibishter. What does happen? He says, V'yasigu, we're going to understand. V'yoidim, we're going to know. There's still always, because the Eibishter is Ein Soif and Bli Gvul, there's always Kamam L'yom HaChasim. What's Kamam L'yom HaChasim? It says, Maim Ein Lam Soif. Maim have no end. That's what the Gemara says. The Rambam brings it also in Halacha, this term, Mayim She'ein Lahem Soif. Maim has no end. This symbolizes Bli Gvul. You can't fully grasp the Eibishter. Even in the Yemaisa Mashiach, when we'll know the Eibishter, there's still always going to be a level of Bli Gvul that's above your head. And the Rebbe says that's the uniqueness of Chamisha Asar B'Shvat. Every month, Chamisha Asar is Shleimus. There's no bittul involved. Every 15th of the month, you have a full moon and Gandikt. Malahar is Zeis Hashem. You're not emphasizing a level that's higher than you that you don't understand. All what you're emphasizing is Shleimus. That's Chamisha Asar of every month. What's Chamisha Asar B'Shvat? It's Oichet HaRosh Hashanah. It's also a new year, which a Rosh symbolizes on bittul. You're only starting. You're not by the Shleimus. Rosh Chodesh is a klein levana and a kod and bittul. And the Rebbe says that's so. The idea of siyum horamabm, the siyum horamabm, the end of the Rambam, which is Molar Tzeis Hashem, Kemaim L'yom HaChasim both. Sai me vet verstehen. Aber me eigen wird sein Bottle, das ist nur Chamisha Asar B'Shvat. Alle andere Chamisha Asar is nur Molar Tzeis Hashem. So this year we have this clear connection between these two in Yonim. The siyum horamabm, right. Now, just to explain a little bit more in this idea, the Rebbe brings, the Rebbe asks, if it's Kamam L'yom HaChasim, how could you also have a Yasigu? How could you have a Yasigu? Yasigu, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, I'm just elaborating on the previous Nekuta. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, Soga means that your brain is surrounding the thing that you're understanding. You're surrounding it, you're wrapping it, you chop it. You're chopping it, you're grasping it with your brain. That is V'yasigu. V'yasigu. That a maskil is toifis the muskal. The person that's understanding is chopping it. Kamaim L'yom HaChasim is the other way around. It's that it's surrounding you. Hechefendir. It's machase you, not your machase it. It's being machase you. So l'chayr it's a stira, the Rebbe says. It's a stira. And Hilchos Tshuva, the Rambam doesn't say Kamaim L'yom HaChasim. Okay, it's not a shayla. But here, why is he adding Kamaim L'yom HaChasim? Kamaim L'yom HaChasim is l'chayr being soiser to what he said earlier. As V'zayin V'yasigu, as mir v'alen chaben Eibishter. So the Rebbe explains, interesting the Kodai. Rabbi Gamliel has an opinion. Anything that is created from the water isn't choitzitz. It's not if someone's toiveling in the ocean and there's a fish stuck onto his arm, his hand, or whatever. Is that a chatzitza? You can't have any chatzitza. It's not a choitzitz. Why? Because it's like the Yam Alein. It's a shtickle Yam Alein. It's a part of the water itself. It's not a mitzias. His mitzias is the mitzias from the Vased. And the Rebbe says so too in knowing the Eibishter. When is the idea of a person knowing the Eibishter? When is it not possible for someone to be a mitzias and know the Eibishter if he's talking mitzias on his own? If someone is his own separate entity, so him and the Eibishter is two separate things. But if his whole mitzias Wertet the Metzius from the Eibishter, so his Metzius is in the stira. If you're your own Metzius, if I exist, there's me, I exist, and then there's the Eibishter. So you kind of have a person understanding the Eibishter. You kind of have Kamayim Liyam Achasim and Vayasigu if the person that's being masig is a Metzius on his own Metzius. But if his whole Metzius is Oitz Metzius, he's totally bottom. He's like a fish in the water. Him having a brain and sitting down like this and learning about the Eibishter like he's learning his Dav Gemara is nicht kein stira. He could exist. Can sein a Metzius. Was versteht the Eibishter. This is similar. The Rebbe brings his father, Reb Leivik, has a famous Rishima where he writes his life, about his whole life history. So he starts off the Rishima, Ani, Levi Yitzchak, Menzel de Rochel. He writes me, Levi Yitzchak, that I was in 5 jails, and I was here and there. He writes his whole life. Papashas, what happened to him. And then he goes and explains his whole life of Pikabola. He says Levi Yitzchak symbolizes on Gvura. Levi is Megamatera Gvura, whatever. He makes some cheshbon, and Yitzchak is also Gvura. Avram is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gvura. And it says Ben Zel de Rachel is also Gvura. It says because he's Gvura, it's not al Pikabala, there's 5 Gvuris. Hey Gvuris. That's why the middle matzah, which is Yitzchak, which is Gvura, it says that you split it to 2 dafikoyman, you break it up into 5.
As Levi and Yitzchak, both are Gvura.
Both of them are Gvura, right.
Levi is also the middle matzah.
Chaim Levi Yisrael.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, good. Stami brings that. No, but he mamish explains it in the Rebbe Rashab, once he split the matzah, got broken into 6 pieces. He put away the 6th piece. Only 5, because there's 5 gvuris. So he says that's why he was in 5 jails, connected to 5 gvuris. And it says, Itake he was in 1 jail twice. It says Nish Mamish 5. So he says, really, Al Pikabola, the 5th gvura is really a chelik from it's really 4 shabachulik l'shtayim, so it's really 4 gvuras, and one of them is split in 2. He says that's why he was in the same jail twice. And then he goes on to the day that he was arrested, because it's connected this dargan gvura, and he shows you, and this and that, and he's going on explaining you his whole life and where he was, and the day it was, and the day was. It's all mechuven mamish. So the Rebbe asks a simple question. So he writes, when he writes in the beginning where he was, he says, why did this happen to him? He says, Meroiv, Avanoisai, V'chatoai, Pshai. That's what he writes. So the Rebbe asks, for someone for his life to be so mechuven, is only if he's a tzad. You're a metzius that knows it. You're wrapping your mind around something that you know. Then there is something that you don't know. You know that you don't know. It's called Hasagas Hashlila. What is the Eibishter? We understand that we don't understand. That's what we could understand. We could understand as this cup isn't the Eibishter. I could understand that as deep as I'm going to think, that's not the Eibishter alone. So the Eibishter, how do we chab the Eibishter? It's Hasagas Hashlila. It's knowing that you don't know. That's the Eibishter, Hasagas Hashlila. And that's what the Rambam is saying over here. That even in the Yemaisa Mashiach, when it's going to be V'yodim Dvarim Masasum V'yasigu Das Boiram, it's Kamayim Liyam Achasim. The water is covering you over. It's Hachafadid. It's covering over you. That even in the Yemaisa Mashiach, there's a Hasagas Hashlila. And the Rebbe says, this is, the Rambam is saying over here, that there's going to be the Shleimus in Ideyas Hashem. There's a Chiyuv to know the Eibishter. There's a mitzvah that is shown as Leida Shiyashem Alakah, the first mitzvah of the Taryag mitzvahs. And Shloisha Prakim, that's today's Rambam. Yes, today's starts off. The first Parakach, they're still doing the Akdama. The Rambam, the first mitzvah is mitzvah that is shown as Leida Shiyashem Alakah. The first mitzvah is to know the Eibishter, the Yediyah. To wissen the Eibishter, nicht lahamin, to wissen, to know. And in knowing the Eibishter, there's 2 ways. There's knowing boifin chiyuvi, and there's knowing boifin shlili. And the Rebbe is explaining that in the Rambam over here, the Rambam is saying when Mashiach said, "Come, we're going to do this mitzvah of Yediyas Hashem b'shleimus. Just like it explains what is Mashiach, it's shleimus in all Torah and mitzvahs, including the mitzvah Rishon of Ladar. The first mitzvah is the most important mitzvah, he says, and that's the last halacha. What's the peak when you make some Mashiach? Lo yeser kol elam ela ladas Hashem. The ganze Eisik in Mashiach will come is the erste mitzvah b'shleimus to visit the Eibishter, and we're going to fulfill it in both ways. Dvorim asumim. And in das boyden with this a chiyuv, that they says ma'aser merkava, and ma'aser bereishis is mainly a sort of chiyuvis. You can understand. Ma'aser merkava is meikar yediyas hashlila. The Eibishter is mevet verstehen. He brings from a sefer. He says tachlis hayidiyah shaloi nedoacha. The hechste yediyah in the Eibishter is you come to the understanding that you don't understand. Du verstehst, as du verstehst nicht. Nicht, as du verstehst nicht. Not that you just amaretz, you don't know, and have a nice day. I never try to understand, and that's why I don't know. The shleimus hayidiyah is that you learn so much, and you come and you understand how great the Eibishter is, as we can him nicht happen. That's Yediyas Hashlila, but that's it. But b'shleimus, you might say Mashiach with coming to them b'shleimus. And he says that's why Hilchas Tshuva, he doesn't say command lo machasim. Why not? Because Hilchas Tshuva is Hilchas Tshuva. What's his Hilchas Tshuva? I mean, laws of returning to God. This is called, in the vanished print of this Rambam, the last two chapters, in the title, it says Hilchas Malachim U'Malchamos U'Melech HaMashiach. The Rebbe brought this down many times. In most Rambams, it just says laws of kings. That's it. But the last two chapters of the Rambam, in the Venice print, which I saw someone selling it the other day. If I was a millionaire, I would buy it. I mean, it wasn't so expensive, but I couldn't buy it. And I saw the actual Rambam. You can see over here, whatever, I'll pass it around. But in the 11th chapter, it says, Hilchis Malachim Malchamais, laws of kings and their wars. And in the last two chapters, Perik Achad Asar and it says Hilchis Malachim Malchamais U'Melech HaMashiach. It adds in this word U'Melech HaMashiach. You see? If you want to see, he adds in. Yeah. You see?
What are the people seeing?
What? What do you mean? I don't know. If we go there, you can see the Hilchis Malachim Malchamais. The last two chapters in the Kabbalah state U'Melech HaMashiach. So in the actual Rambam itself, it added in the words the Melech HaMashiach. I have it in bigger actual meaning, which means, in very simple words, Hilchos Malachim Malchamis is 11th chapter, but the last two chapters in the Hilchos Malachim
original print,
Melech HaMashiach,
the original print,
Venice print, Venice. This is 500 years ago. Melech HaMashiach, you see. In very simple words, go to Pashto Vete. The Rebbe says the last two chapters, the Rambam is talking about Mashiach. Hilchos Tshuva, he's talking about Tshuva. He mentions Mashiach B'derech Chag. The last two chapters, the couple from the state Tzvei Bracha, State Melech HaMashiach. This is what he's coming to talk about. Therefore, the Rambam talks about Vedim. The whole Rambam is the last halacha from the ganze Yad HaChazokah. Here, because this is the place to talk about it. The Rebbe gives us some. This is the most Pashto answer the Rebbe gives. The Rebbe has very deep answers in this, but the Rebbe gives a simple answer. Hilchos Tshuva is Hilchos Tshuva. So he doesn't get. The Rebbe says Kamayim L'Yom HaChasim. Why does the Rambam need to add Kamayim L'Yom HaChasim? Because if you're talking about Ma'aser Merkava, you have to add Kamayim L'Yom HaChasim. And Hilchos Tshuva, nicht wegen nicht Ma'aser Merkava, nicht Ma'aser Bereishis, nicht gar nicht. It just says, we're going to be busy to know the Eibishter. That's it. So he says, Mo La'aretz Deis Hashem. He doesn't go in. Hilchos Tshuva, he says, Ba'oisen HaYomim, Tarba HaDeya VeHaChochma VeHemes. Those days, there's going to be a lot of Deya, Hasach Chochma, and Hasach Emes. Shenamar Ki Mo La'aretz Deis Hashem. What did he say? He's bringing a pasuk to prove what he's saying. So what did he say? He's bring to that pasuk. He's not saying that this is going to be the only thing. So it's the einzige Zach. Es wird sein Sach. Nicht die einzige Sache. In Hilches Malachim ist es, das wird sein die einzige Sache. Es wird sein gar nicht, ach gut dem. Loi Yehya Eise Kol Olam Ella. Sagt Loi Ella. Lo Yehya Kol Olam Ella Ladas is Hashem Bilvat. Toysus in Menachos says every time it says Loi Ella, it's Leikuva. It's kind of sein Andrish. If the Torah would just say do Azoi Nazoi, so it could be the mitzvah. Aber nicht getan, Lo Yikev. Lo Nasan Lo Yikev. It's a shayna, if you did it, good. If you didn't do it, it's euch nicht gut. It's nicht ma'akiv. But when it says Loi Ella, it's Leikuva. Es muss sein Azoi und nicht Andrish. Der Rabbim ist saying, nicht nur, es wird sein, der ja Chochmo und Emes, und sie können sein noch eine Sache, andere Sachen reichet. Sein Pizza mit Eiscreme. Here he says, Lo Yehya Kol Olam Ella Ladas is Hashem Bilvat. This is going to be absolutely the only thing. So the Hilchos Tshuva, when he says, so he brings a pasuk to prove what he said. What did he say? The world will be filled. Aber nicht, das wird sein der einzige Sache. In Hilchos Malachim, over here he says, wird sein gar nicht achutz dem, darf bringen, Kaman Leo Machasim. What is Kaman Leo Machasim? We look at the ocean. You look at the water, you don't see anything but the water. You don't see fish, you don't see the valleys and the up and down, and you don't see you only see water. So in Hilchos Malachim, the laws of kings, where he says this will be the only thing that we will be doing, he has to bring the pasuk to prove that. So he says, which means in Hilchos Tshuva, the Rebbe says it's Tshuva. So he's not getting into details. He's not getting into anything. He's just saying it generally. Hilchos Malachim, this is Hilchos Mashiach. Redt wegen des Samarim von Mashiach. Sagt the Seder von Mashiach. Der Reis von Mashiach. Wie the Welt wird sein, wenn Mashiach wird kommen. Das ist der Mashiach, der Kaprakim. Hilchos Mashiach. So he adds details. He says, he adds the details, which makes him need to add Kamai Machasim. So I just said like 3 biyurim of the Rebbe over here. It's Sai, Hilchos Tshuva. It's Tshuva, and this is Hilchos Mashiach. And also the Rebbe says Hilchos Tshuva, he doesn't talk about Ma'aser B'Kov Ma'aser B'Reishis. Here he does. He says Dvarim Asasumim. He says Das Boiram. Therefore he needs to add Kamayim Leo Machasim. I think it is, was a learning in the Prakim, was a kochen in the Prakim. Ishtorein Malayar. The Rebbe gave out this booklet. It wasn't the siyum Rambam. This week, I was whatever. I wrote on a WhatsApp group. And Baruch Hashem, I saw since ungenommen geworden. People have this getan. The Rebbe gave, I have a taiva that when I do my chitas, at the daily Tanya, I use the Tanya the Rebbe gave. I daven from the Siddur from the Rebbe. I say the daily Tehillim from the Rebbe. So I always imagine, I wish I was able to get it. Because Rambam was the Rebbe genutzt. Can I learn in the Rambam from the Rebbe? Aber ich nicht. Now which two prakim the Rambam koch sich? Is the letzte zwei Prakim from the Rambam. So I was thinking, we can learn in the Rambam, Hilchos Mashiach from the Rambam from the Rebbe. And I realized, the Rebbe gave out this booklet. This Rebbe gave to my mother, but the Rebbe gave thousand booklets. And in the booklet, from the Rebbe's Heilige Hand, it has the last two Prakim. So from the Adarab, from the ganze Rambam, welche Prakim can man lernen from the Rebbe, was the Rebbe detailed, is the letzte zwei Prakim. Every Lubavitcher Chosid. So I wrote this heritage, and I said, that you have your booklet the Rebbe gave you, take it off the shelf, and learn the Rambam for the siyum Rambam. You can learn 2 Prakim at least from a Rambam from the Rebbe. If the Rebbe got in the Rebbe's hand. And I saw many people did it. People whatever. So I'm saying, zusammen damit habe ich mal gewähnt, but that the Rebbe gave out his booklet not on the siyum Rambam. So the siyum Rambam was a few months later, a few months before the next siyum Rambam. The Rebbe wanted these prakim should be learned. Yet the talk. It needs to be prakim. This is something I thought of Shimon Sofer. This order is true. He made a sefer called Musarei HaRambam. Musarei HaRambam. You know the sefer of Yosef Taber. Musarei HaRambam from Reb Shimon Sofer. This order is true for sefer. He made a sefer called Musari Rambam. What did he do? The Rambam was very geschmack. In the end of every Seder halachis, especially in the end of every sefer, the Rambam has geschmack and musar. Geschmack, he knows about Avodas Hashem, the way he talks. Like mamish geschmack is choira. So he made a sefer called Musari Rambam, where he was malakit. All the end of all the Alid Yodim. And he made a sefer called Musari Rambam. Now what? But he was machalik that every day.
If it's called Musari Rambam, it should be called Mishnah Torah.
Mishnah Torah. No,
because Mishnah Torah was the Mishnah from Moshe.
Muslim, yeah, but you're gonna get mixed up. He called it Musari Rambam, whatever. No, Mishnah Torah, but in the name Mishnah Torah, you wouldn't see this Indian. The Rambam himself is called Mishnah Torah. It's Ishkin Musar Sefer. Mishnah Torah means Machazi Dibber. That's what Mishnah Torah means.
Moshe gave Mishnah Torah.
Okay, so he gave in Musar in the Mishnah Torah, but he called it. He's given a grace to Abel Chacham and Gavuz was the Rufen. Musari Rambam. He called him Musari Rambam, and over there he brings out the Musar from the Rambam. But he didn't just make this safer and have an idea who wants it, put on your shelf and let it collect dust. He made that you're meant to learn every day Rambam. Already then the Shimon Sofer. He didn't say you learn the Hokan Rambam Allah Seder. I mean, when he was Masader, you shall learn the Rambam Yeder Tag. And he was Masader that every month Yeder Chodesh was endig in sein ganze Sefer. Every day of the month he meant to learn like a perek or two parakim from the Rambam. But you learn the same thing again and again. And he writes in his Agdoma, it's very geschmack Agdoma, whatever. But he writes that it's like Mamish, Ma'ir people, Yiddish Shamayim, and this, and therefore you meant to learn it again and again, and you should learn it about pace. You're learning it so much, and it's going to help people to serve the Eibishter, whatever. It's very, very geschmack, these let's the Chalagim and the Rambam. But he brings over there, right, in the end of his Sefer, end of his Chodesh, what he brings, the let's the Tzvei Prakim from the Rambam. Das heißt, Leute, Reb Shimon Sofer, nicht kein Lubavitcher Chassid, like 200 years ago, I mean, it was very close with the Rebbe Rayatz, but he was already masakin Yeder Chodesh, L'dai Toim, darf man lernen, Hilchus Mashiach. Einmal a Chodesh, L'chol HaPachas. Einmal a Chodesh, darf man durchgehen die letzten zwei Prakim. Let Reb Shimon Sofer, nicht kein Pashta Meise. I try to do it every day. I used to have a quiz, which I should be machazik myself, every day right after Ma'ariv. I would sit down for 5 minutes, close my eyes, and go through the last two prakim. I learned about that. Huh?
How many days do you have in a day?
How many days do you have in a day?
Do you have in a day? All day. Yeah.
How many times, how many days do you have to say Ashrei? Once you know it already, it's a Geit Azoi. People, I was jealous. I saw a guy, he made a siyum Rambam in Buffalo with Shnech Rabbi Shari Torah. He's making a siyum Rambam, his 45th time. Durchgelernt ganze Rambam, 45 Mal. From the day, he's doing Rambam every day. And give me a listen, you think, darf sich haken dort in 3 Show? No. You have to learn Rambam once, twice, 3 times, 10 times. I'm sure it takes him 20 minutes and he's done Shloshim Prakim. No, I didn't say daven. I said to learn. Yeah. After a guy's doing it for 45 years.
Yeah, I'm not talking about 45. I'm talking 45 years ago.
If you start, you're gonna get to there. A little kid that hyped on Ashrei, hyped on davening, he's slow.
We about to see my Rambam last yesterday.
One parak is 3 years. 3 Prakim is 1 year. Nee.
Yeah.
You do 6 Prakim in half a year.
But doesn't need the Rebbe gesagt.
To say it.
45.
No, we learn it over here. I read it and I translate.
If you learn it, but you can learn it.
I said the word.
Depending on how long the perek is. Hilchas Shabbos has many, like 30 halachas every perek.
And in a year, 11 months and 15 days. 11 months, 15 days, man, the ganze Rambam. They do a perek a day. Now they're starting. Seven mitzvahs also. The Rebbe made three maslulim, 3 routes. The lahadrim min mahadrim is drei prakim atog endik min anayot. We can't drei prakim atog by mezes siva. It's ein perek atog. Man, you can drei yor. Man, you can So this year, they finished. Now we're starting the new cycle of Ein Perekatot. And if we can stop the Ein Perekatot, is the Chalapach Sefer HaMitzvahs, which is whatever, but it's even less than one parak. And Sefer HaMitzvahs, the Rebbe said, no, I don't think it's that hard. He reads it after davening, Sefer HaMitzvahs over here. It's not nicht so, I mean, maybe here and there, whatever, but it's from Kolalis, it's Kurtz and this, and it's. So maybe a guy gives you a ganze Pilpul, but if you just read the Rambam and versteht, nicht bereit. Yeah, but you read it, you understand it. You can machen Pilpulim. You can, for instance, there's Svardim on Agdomas Harambam, which is like Agdomas Harambam is just Minute of mitzvahs, a ganze Sefer, and the guy didn't live in the cover, and he's midaik. Was it geschrieben? But I just like you read the shot of lights all day. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up. It's good you pointed out.
We're not trying to get into the. We're not trying to get the chassidus part yet. We're getting some.
The introduction of the Rambam.
The introduction
of the Rambam brings all the mitzvahs. Yeah. In the introduction of the Rambam, he brings all the mitzvahs. So I'm saying there's somebody made a whole book explaining the depth in what the Rambam is writing in his introduction. He's just saying you should put a tefillin, keep Shabbos, keep kosher, and you're like. So he's saying Sefer HaMitzvahs is deep and hard. The question is, at what level you're learning it, and everything. I'm giving an example of that. If you're learning it at a deep level, and it's deep. The guy shows you how deep it is. Why did Rambam was machalik into two mitzvahs and not one mitzvah? And why did Rambam split it up to two mitzvahs and not one mitzvah? Why did Rambam wrote it in this way? And why he just starts ultra analyzing the words of the Rambam. So if you learn it at a very deep level, for sure, but at a very simple level, Rambam writes, he's writing his things like cotton lagadol, as a cotton. A little kid can understand it and learn it, and also a gadol, which means a simple kid could read the Rambam and understand the Rambam, and also a big Rosh Yeshiva can start giving you his pilpulim, his deep novelty classes, how the depth in the Rambam. But you're not obligated. You're not mechuyev. You're not obligated to learn it on the deepest level. The simplest level. That's what the Rebbe said. The Sefer HaMitzvahs is for little kids and for women. When we were in the Torah in class, he read to us 3 lines. Have a nice day. But you could learn Sefer HaMitzvahs on a very deep level.
Right, what the mitzvah is.
The Agdama, the Rambam is even simpler than Sefer HaMitzvahs. What do you have over there? He's just counting minute mitzvahs. He's counting you the mitzvahs. Even that, there's deep. So whatever it is, the Ma'aso Hua Ikar, action is the most important. We spoke about the Shiva Sabinim. We spoke about Mashiach, and we spoke about learning about Mashiach. This is something was about learning in the end of the talking about Yisrael. You have to learn it every day. You got to learn about Mashiach. Every day.
Who's learning Perek Rambam now?
I'd like to thank.
To translate your book.
Yes, we got to translate the book. For sponsoring the shir, instituting the shir, and sponsoring the sushi and getting. We had at least a shia as maybe at a certain point we had a 10th also.
Yeah, we had this guy over here.
Yeah, the names the shir is Ben Ishmas, Hirsch Gedalia, Ben Arna Haledi, and Shana Bas. Leonard should have Alisa the Shama, Kitzvarad, Sheikh Liofar, and the main thing is Mashiach should come this second right away. Take it, we have Babish, my baby, should have the bris, and we got the toilet of Chubamais and Toiv, together with Mashiach. I hope so, yeah, I hope in time. Okay, I hope so. That's when the baby was born.